In case you haven't realized it yet, I know many of you have known this for quite a long time. Let's be honest here. Many of you have known this for quite a long time, but we have a problem in this community. There is a problem in this community. And man, it's really tough. It's really tough because it's so difficult. And look, no one wants to talk about difficult things, right? Like, whoever wants to have the difficult conversations? Um, Nobody does. But I think it's becoming very apparent to those who have not had not already realized it for years that there's a big problem in the community, and it's it's really difficult to talk about because it's not like it's a small problem. You know what I mean? Small problems are, they're easy to put your finger on and identify, and then kind of get an understanding, get past it. Uh, Big problems that are complex, they're not so easy, right? And truly, I believe that we have a big problem in this community that's complex. And I'm often reminded, and I think everyone has known this, right? Everyone intuitively knew that when Doug Carter started inserting or interjecting this term tentacles in this community, it's pretty clear. Everyone knew on a gut level that Doug Carter was telling the truth. And it's kind of funny how time goes by and things change and people forget. And I often wonder, did Doug Carter forget? Because where he left this community is a dumpster fire. And honestly, it's difficult and not always appropriate to blame all the problems on one person. But let's be honest here. To a large extent, it's somewhat accurate to say that the dumpster fire that is currently burning in this community would not exist had Doug Carter not walked away and allowed it. And so I'm not really a hateful person. I don't want to project a lot of hate onto one person, and that be Doug Carter. But sometimes it's like, if the shoe fits, wear him. And unfortunately, what it looks like with Doug Carter, when he wakes up in the morning, he sits on the edge of his bed and he puts his pants on one leg at a time. The shoe fits. Doug Carter is enjoying his retirement. He was able to step away with some inference of success, as if he did his job and mission was accomplished. And honestly, if you look at the irony of it all, it's very interesting with the timing of it all. because Doug Carter was going to be out of there regardless with the change of politics in Indiana and the governorship. Uh, the clock was ticking on Doug Carter, and somehow miraculously, they got this thing initiated, progressed, and finalized before that clock ran out on Doug. And it's really like a tragedy in the most honest sense. I would say if Shakespeare had a colleague that was more akin to what's his name? David Lynch. I would say this would be somewhat of a Lynchian sort of tragedy in which it's ugly. There's no beauty. And at the ending, there's only heartbreak, disgust, longing, and sorrow. And you see, so when I think of this community and this term tentacles and the problem that's endemic in this community, I think of these sorts of things. And it's really tragic. Now, when I reference the ugliness of it, what I mean is that literally every aspect has been so ugly. Now, anger, passion, frustration, aggression, all of these things that this sort of tragedy stirs in a human being, they're difficult feelings. I'm sure all of you have been sick to the point where you're almost or nearly disoriented because the viruses and complications due to the illness are so stirred within you that they almost overwhelm you. And you can hardly speak, hardly think, hardly walk. And this is what I mean, because it's this sort of anger and frustration. And you see, when those things are happening, you want an outlet to pour these things onto, because it's nearly impossible to keep all of that pent up within inside. And when I look around and I see the mixture of behaviors, of illogical things, the trolling, the hate, the doxing, the screaming, the yelling, I see inside, and I see this baby having a tantrum, so to speak, where they don't know how to express the frustration or who to direct it to. So it ends up being broadcast to anyone within reach, often to those closest. And this happens in our personal lives as well, where often we'll reach out and hurt family and friends and lovers. because we don't know how to direct the feelings that are stirring within us onto the right people. And so I tend to understand that this problem in the community that's so comprehensive and complicated that it's multi-tiered. Okay. There are many reasons for the various problems. All the problems don't have the same causes. So there are all these levels of motivating factors behind the problems that you see. And I find it odd that in this frustration, especially when you look at our corner, which is fairly sympathetic to the injustices that were apparent and perpetrated at towards Richard Allen specifically. It's clear that there's a lot of frustration that is to be had. There's enough to go around because you look at Richard Allen and you look at what we saw. Like if I make it personal and I put myself in my own shoes going back 2 years ago, I have to say I knew it. I knew it. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is that when Richard Allen was arrested and then cast in to Westville, and before the attorneys went in and took that photograph of his condition, I have to be honest with you all. I knew it. I had this sixth sense after he'd been in there for a while. I had this sixth sense. And I felt like they're going to kill him. I felt like they're torturing him. They're abusing him. They're trying to threaten him to confess. I knew it. I just knew it. I knew he was deteriorating. I knew his condition was horrendous. I assumed that he was walking around in his own feces. There was just some inner knowing within me. And I said, I knew it. I just knew it. And I sat here and I did these shows without saying a word about it. I just knew it, and it was irking me. I sat here and it irked me. And I did show after show, and I tried to do all the shit that these channels still try to do. I tried to go through the case and go through the screenshots and go through all the community's whisperings over the years and go through the witnesses and go through the 2 a.m. screams and go through the ad nauseum fucking information in this case. Remember, we got good information mixed in with disinformation and misinformation. It's just a mountain of information. And I sat here and I went through that mountain of information the whole time knowing it. And so I have to admit, when the defense attorneys released that photo, it wasn't really a surprise to me. It was still a shock to me, but it wasn't a huge surprise because I already had that inner knowing that that's what was happening. And I figured he's going to be dead soon. I assumed there would not be a trial because he wouldn't make it. But I guess he shocked all of us in that way. And somehow we got to this point where a trial happened. And I sat here with you through that trial. And I sat here on the day of the verdict coming. And I sat here minutes before that verdict was announced. And I said, there's absolutely no way they're going to go with guilty. Impossible. Yet, to all our dismay, that jury returned a guilty verdict. And it was jarring, I must say. It was jarring. It was shocking. It was shocking. No one in their right mind, having paid attention, would ever have thought that they would return a guilty verdict. It seemed impossible, literally. I assumed a hung jury at most. So let me just say, as someone who witnessed all of that and felt all of those emotions, I can sympathize with everyone who has all of this built-in frustration and anger, rage at what happened here. I can also understand that people for years invested their energies in trying to find the killers of Abby and Libby. After all, this community was magnetic. This case was magnetic. So it drew a community to it that was highly invested in helping these girls out, finding their killers. Throughout all the complexity, all of the changes of direction, all of the bullshit, all of the PR, the gaslighting, the lies, the family's shit, and the cop shit, and all of the stuff, people remained invested. The thousands and thousands of screenshots they had to process, the gatekeepers, the speech police, narrative controllers, the drama queens. I understand it. I understand the feelings because some people have been in this since day one. 7, 8 years invested. And then to see things go this way. So I understand that there are people who are well-meaning people who are full of rage. And they can't direct it at Nicholas McClelland or the state police or Judge Gold because they don't touch Nicholas McClelland, the state police, or Judge Gold. The state police, Nicholas McClelland and Judge Gold, don't interact with them on social media. They're not accessible. They don't sit here and talk to them and interact with them interactively here in this social media community, in this community here on social media. The social media verse that we know as Delphi. So what happens is that they're unable to express these feelings and vent these feelings onto the responsible parties. They cannot go to the corrections officers with the Odin patches and scream and yell at them in their face and slap them and swing their arms at them, beat them up, whatever. They want to express the rage the frustration. So what they end up with is they end up with messengers, people who had absolutely no hand in the outcome here. People like you and me and other creators, both on the prosecution side and on the defense's side, across the spectrum. They're able to interact with all of us. They're able to speak to us. They're able to watch us. They're able to scream and yell and beat up on us because we're here, we're accessible, they can touch us. And that's just the surface level because it gets even deeper, which is that we also realize that we have another problem. And that there appear to be bad actors inserted all throughout this community in different places you wouldn't expect, and in some you would. And those bad actors will naturally, they will also beat up, scream and yell, express rage, intimidation, anger, and evil towards you and me. Because that's what they're here for. And so you look at it all, and it's a panorama. Like I said, it's a multi-tiered community with all of these various types of tentacles and all the things you have to navigate and understand. And so we end up in a place where I can say, well, you see, this is the reason that honesty is important. Because it's complicated enough. It's a labyrinth. So at every turn, we need honesty. And the thing is, I happen to be someone who's pretty adamant about expecting it. Now, clearly you've seen that in the past couple months, there's been a lot of difficulty. And I just can't understand. It's nearly impossible for me to understand this difficulty. Because I'm a simple person at my root. I'm very simple. So I look at this and I say, this should be easy. And I didn't set out to hurt anyone, you see? For instance, you all know that they're trolls, right? And in dealing with trolls for 2 years, I still never set out to hurt any of them. So naturally, I would not set out to hurt anyone on this side. But my insistence on honesty is pretty non-negotiable. because I position myself in a place where I think, listen, this is the double homicide of two little girls, two children. Why would you ever be dishonest about it? And about anything? And honestly, that's my bottom line. Now, I'd like you to notice that I asked simple questions. So, as an introduction to what we're going to talk about tonight in the first part, I want to kind of rehash some of these simple questions. And you may remember, after March 12th of this year, with the release of this video, sorry about that. Hold on. With the release of this video, I asked a simple question. Where did it come from? Who released it? Now, keep in mind, on March 11th, the state public defender filed a notice of appeal. March 11th. The next day, March 12th, it appeared on my case, Indiana. And like clockwork, with the appearance of this notice of appeal on my case, immediately, several things kicked into motion like clockwork. And this was all a plan. Don't doubt it. What happened was, it was known that on March 11th, the notice of appeal was filed by the state public defender. So this group of individuals immediately started to watch out for my case, which meant this group was constantly checking my case. Because a plan had been set into motion. And that plan was that as soon as the notice of appeal was posted to my case, several things would take place. Andy Kopsa, Michael Osbrook, Kara Weinecke would go live and lay the foundation, the groundwork for the public's understanding, or the community, the inner community's understanding of this website and of this video. The next thing that happened is, as soon as this posted to my case, R&M Productions went live and pretended not to know that this was all going down. pretended not to know who was behind this, pretended not to know what this was, and pretended to be the first time this was ever seen. And R&M Production sat there and guided everyone through the website and guided everyone through the video, while in the chat, the narrative controllers established the talking points because the audience was asking the difficult questions. Questions like, who posted this? Where's this from? Is this the enhanced version? Who posted this? Where's this from? Is this the enhanced version? And every question was shot down immediately in the chat. And that went on for 1 hour. And after this very awkward LARPing within a LARP, everyone was sent over to criminality channel, the criminality channel. Everyone was sent over to the criminality channel. Hey, everybody, go over there. Wherein a community discussion was had, and the talking points were reiterated over and over and over and over again. So within the first 4 to 5 hours, all questions had been shut down. All organic questions were shut down. Now, keep in mind, like I said, live number 1 was Kapsa, Alsbrook, and Weineke laying the foundation, the groundwork. Live number 2 was R&M Productions with the premiere and introduction of the website. And live number 3, the capstone, was the community discussion. All 3 of them were one thing. It was a production. Perfectly timed. Knowing that, it should be no wonder that questions were asked. Questions like, who posted this video? Where's this from? What is it? And you know, honestly, these are the most organic questions. The most organic questions. There's zero doubt about it. The first questions anyone would ask. What is this? Where is it from? And who did it? Now, keep in mind, this is March 12th. I tried my hardest to understand why those questions would not be answered. And not only were those questions not answered, and trust me, these are easy questions. These are simple questions. Not only were they not answered, but they were lied about. Okay, so in other words, these little questions they could have easily been answered immediately. Okay, in the foregoing in this example I'm about to give, I'm not alleging any particular chain of custody or any facts. This is all hypothetical that I'm going to say now. But I'm going to give you some examples of how this could have happened, okay? For instance, someone could have said, where did this come from? And the answer could have been as simple as, well, so and so gave it to me. Question number two could have been, what is this? And the immediate answer could have been, this is the video from ABC. The third question asked, how did this get on the website? And someone could have said, well, individual A had received the extraction and extracted the video. Individual A handed it off to individual B. Individual B then messaged individual C and sent it by, I don't know, fucking Google Drive to individual C, who then handed it to individual D. And individual D literally took it and posted on the website. And you see, in this sort of way, a very clear factual explanation of every step with receipts to boot would have immediately resolved all questions. But no, that couldn't happen. That couldn't happen. And so causes one to wonder why. What would it be that would prevent you from answering it the easy way, the simple way, the honest way, the direct way, and the immediate way, putting to rest all concerns? But instead, it's first met with lies in version 1, then there's version 2, then there's version 3. All right? And then time goes by and more time goes by and more. And then we're nearing the 2-month part. 2-month point. And breadcrumbs begin to be dropped. Not answers, not straight answers, not honest answers, but a month and a half in, nearing the 2-month point, breadcrumbs begin to be dropped to try to appease everyone asking questions. Then, simultaneously, while this is happening, something else transpires in which the retainer agreement begins to be discussed all over Twitter. And there's this false sense of urgency that's being drummed up. And I'm watching it. And I'm like, what the hell is this discussion here? And then I come into possession of it. And then simultaneously, I'm noticing the narrative on Twitter, the false sense of urgency, it starts to morph and it starts to pivot. And it very immediately and strongly pivots. And what it pivots to is tort claim. Statute of limitations. So I'm watching Twitter and I'm observing very closely. I'm like, okay, false sense of urgency about post-conviction relief or post-conviction investigation contract now pivoting to, oh, no, not that. Tort claim, statute of limitations. And I'm watching it all. And I'm thinking, this is odd. In the meantime, I'm noticing this entire wave of harassment, which I term gang stalking, starts to build like a tidal wave coming your way. I'm like, what's up with this harassment, gang stalking, doxing? And while all of this is happening, I start getting emails separated by week or 2 or 3. First email is like, Prof, I was a donor to the Rick Allen Defense Expert Fundraiser, which I'm sure you remember. And I want to know how much of those funds remain and what's going to be done with them. Then I get a phone call. And another person says, Prof, I donated a large sum of money to that fundraiser. And I don't know where it is. And I'm not getting straight answers from the people who should know the answers. And then I get another person who messages me. And they say, I donated to the fundraiser. And I have questions about it. And I've sent messages to Stripe. And I'm not getting any clear answers. And so this continues to happen until I'm suddenly aware of a handful of donors who are all asking the same questions and having the same concerns. And remember, simultaneously, there's all of this noise and false sense of urgency about tort claims and statute of limitations and suing the prison, and Kathy needs lawyers, and there's a post-conviction investigation needs to happen, and we need to be doing it. And we're all, who's speaking for Kathy? No one's speaking for Kathy, and everyone's speaking for Kathy, and no one's speaking for Kathy. And still, how dare you demand information about this video? It's a fucking exhibit. But we can't give you the exhibit number, and the judge hasn't given any exhibits of a similar sort, so there's nothing to compare it to verify it's an exhibit. So suddenly I'm in the midst of a hurricane. But because of my nature, I'm in the eye of the storm. And I'm watching it all swirl around me. And I'm thinking, this is interesting. And I've never pretended to be perfect. I've never pretended to be politically correct or kind at all times. I tend to worry about what's important. And so the whole time, my finger's on the pulse of what are the honest people saying? What are the genuine, honest, truthful people saying? What are they showing? And I'm keeping my finger on that pulse. And I'm seeing very clearly. At the same time, I'm seeing all of the people go absolutely berserker around me. Because I refuse to relent. And I stand tall because I know that I'm doing the right thing. Anyhow, like I said, you have people who have all of this frustration and anger, rage, internalized because of what happened both to Abby and Libby and to Rick Allen. And they're looking at me And I am obviously upsetting the status quo because I cannot allow to stand dishonesty, even if it's on my side. And because I'm upsetting the status quo, and it's somewhat of an earthquake. So imagine in this community, not only do we have a hurricane, but simultaneous with the hurricane, there's an earthquake. The ground is shifting because the status quo is being upset. It's truly an apocalyptic scenario. And so this is when the true colors are shown. Remember, if you've ever followed the preppers community, they practice for a STHF scenario, or shit hit the fan scenario. And essentially, this is what we've been experiencing in the community, is a shit hit the fan scenario. And so that's my introduction to our subject matter tonight, which will be that tonight we're going to cover two topics. Both topics are crucial and prescient elements of the shit hit the fan scenario. And that is that first, we're going to discuss the 2024 fundraiser for defense experts. That was initiated under the umbrella of David Hennessy. And we'll take a look at some things. And then we're going to, in part two, we're going to cover the most surprising and recent development that's also an aspect of the shit hit the fan scenario in this community, which is the alleged second juror who has stepped forward with the most unbelievable take on the trial of Richard Allen. Again, if you thought the first juror and her statements were alarming, this is exponentially more alarming. And not only that, it's only a glimpse into what's to come, because the individual who is bringing forth this juror's information says that there are many more installments to come of this juror's statements and feelings regarding the statement. So I guess first of all, let's get into the first part here, which will be let's see. This right here is my community post on the Prof YouTube channel. There's some things I like to talk about regarding this, okay? So first, I guess as a way of getting into the topic, I'll read through this post, but it's there on the community wall for you all to check out yourself, okay? All right, so here we go. We're going to get into this right now. So this says, where are the funds that were raised for defense experts in the Richard Allen trial? All right, here we go. I said below you will see the initial way that this fundraiser was sold to the public. This is taken directly from the fundraiser. This is the official expert expense fund for Richard Allen. Please be advised that no funds collected will be offset against fees related to David Hennessy's law firm, Richard Allen's defense team, or to Richard Allen. So that's a very, very, very important statement. Before we go one step further, every single listener within the sound of my voice needs to understand that statement and understand every word of it. Please be advised, before you send us your money, that no funds collected, no funds will be offset against fees, right? Related to either David Hennessy's law firm or Richard Allen's defense team or to Richard Allen himself. So do you understand that statement? Not one penny is going to David Hennessy, Richard Allen's defense team, or Richard Allen himself. And I would say that would also mean, or to Kathy Allen. Okay, now some facts. This fundraiser resulted in 709 donors, at least through this pathway. There may have been more unofficially. Remember that there were funds raised on various YouTube channels and whatnot that may have been routed in other ways. But according to this particular pathway, which is the official pathway through Stripe, there were 709 donors exactly, raising funds in the amount totaling $40,220.76. Okay? $40,000, 220.76, according to the official site. $40,000, 220.76. There are 100 pages of documents that were recently unsealed regarding defense funding, which I exhaustively covered in the following live stream. And that live stream, you can click on this link here. You see the link? So if you click on that link, it will bring you to my live stream called Show Me the Money, in which I went through every single page of the 100 pages of court orders and other documents regarding defense funding. Okay, and I quote from the first page of that unsealing. I said that Judge Gull stated upon the unsealing of these records, quote, "The state public defender filed the notice of appeal on March 11th, 2025. This court previously sealed numerous court orders at the defendant's request regarding ex parte motions for funding." Now, this is important too. Keep this in mind. These motions were filed between are filed on December. Okay. The sealing was requested on December 8th and granted on December 12th of 2022. Okay. So appellate counsel has requested access to some of those pleadings and orders. Court grants appellate counsel's request and unseals the orders from January 2023 through March 2025. So understand, court grants the appellate counsel's request and unseals the orders from January 24th, 2023 through present, which was March 2025. All right? So let me pull this down for a minute. Okay, so basically, Adrian recently asked a question about auditing the fundraiser funds. All right? And it's very odd because, as you know, I watch human behavior as a primary indicator of where red flags might exist. And I found it very odd that immediately upon Adrian's question, a reply was given. So, first of all, let me go to Adrian's question and read it for you so you understand what the question was before we continue. So, the question is as follows: does anyone know how to file a petition to get signatures to demand an audit of the April 2024 Rick Allen Expert fundraiser? I think if it's framed in a broader sense, it could extend out past Rick Allen and be a deterrent for online future grifts. Does anyone know how to professionally and legally bring these concerns to the IRS? If law enforcement is too afraid to take genuine harassment seriously, they may actually care about where some of the good faith donations made public have gone to. Disclaimer: the 2024 fundraiser in no way reflects negatively on Richard or Kathy Allen. They did not have much, if anything, to say on the matter. All right? So, in response to that, I found it very, very odd that someone replied hatefully. So let me read this. It says, I find it very odd that after Adrian asked a very simple question about auditing the defense expert fundraiser account and questioned where the remaining funds currently reside, as many of my followers have also questioned, she receives the following hateful and grossly inaccurate reply by YouTuber All Eyes on Delphi. And I'm going to read some quotes from All Eyes on Delphi regarding this topic. Now, I've been busy with priorities and commitments, so I just now got around to this, but it only took me a whole 17 minutes to put the money defense had to front for experts into a spreadsheet and see how much was left over from the fundraiser after Gall authorized reimbursements. No clue why the people such concerned about the fundraiser haven't done it themselves, considering the court made all defense expenses available on April 11, 2025, and it wasn't even remotely hard to find or figure out. Not trying to be rude, that's what you say when you're trying to be rude, but I am just clearly not the tree anyone should be trying to bark up when no one asked you in the first place. I'm just trying to make it easier for people to see the money went to what defense raised requested it for, as I document each unsealed confidential order for the GitHub. But it's more important to note that, one, the ex parte expenses are still privileged information that none of us were ever actually entitled to. The state has still not sufficiently disclosed their publicly funded expenses, even though that's public info. Three, there has been zero transparency about the fund that paid for Gull's defense after she illegally removed Baldwin and Rozzi to appoint counsel of her choice for Richard Allen. Adding the link to the 101 confidential orders Gull inexplicably unsealed before the public trial exhibits were even released, so people can at least answer their own questions. Okay, before I move on, let me say this, because there's too much here. First of all, there's so much here, okay? Gull very clearly stated why she unsealed it. So that's a non-issue, okay? And I quoted that up above this. She stated she unsealed it because the appellate team was asking for it. Okay, secondly, can't you hear the rage here, the frustration, the anger? Everything I was just describing the previous hour. Can't you hear it? Can't you feel it? Yes, there's frustration at the court in the state of Indiana. Okay? That frustration, however, at the court in the state of Indiana have nothing to do with genuine questions and concerns that donors have about their monies. Okay? Let me continue before I pontificate too much. There's more. Now, the following, everyone, you need to know is grossly inaccurate. So please do not listen to the following for facts or accuracy's sake. Okay, but we'll continue on that later. The total amount for experts was more than $100,000, as you would have easily be able to see from all the defense's spreadsheet that I've now provided twice. Well, your spreadsheets are inaccurate, so they're irrelevant. Gold denied almost $10,000 for experts and further expenditures for other experts that she previously approved. I'm guessing I'll figure out where the remaining went, or it will go before you, or where it will go before you do, since I'll actually look into bro, while you'll just continue spending your days trying to cry bully others into doing the work for you instead of simply doing it yourself. No one asked you to do this, all eyes. All right? The actual cost of experts was more than $100,000, not including almost $10,000 in denied requests and expenditures that Gold denied. Yeah, but that's obfuscating the point, and we'll talk about why later. You're welcome to beat me to getting to those, but most of the questionable people are asking have either been answered. Most of the questions people are asking have either been answered multiple times, no, they haven't. In multiple ways, no, they haven't. In multiple places for anyone to find, no, they haven't. Okay? There's been no auditing of the fundraiser. Gold never makes it easy, but she did finally release all the information needed for literally anyone to be able to figure out precisely who, when, where it all went. Yeah, I've done that. Prior to that, defense would have been violating her order on ex parte funding if they disclosed it. Right. But so far, but every step of the way that I've broken it down, turns out all went exactly as they said it would at the actual time. That's convoluting the conversation. We now have names, invoice numbers, and orders that actually anyone wanting to know can simply look for and figure out for themselves. Literally anyone is welcome to beat me to breaking it down in all the various ways. I donated for morale, and I don't give a fuck where it went. Well, that's crazy. I'm only doing it to include it in all the things Richard Allen case GitHub. Yeah, well, personally, I want proof of your taxes or bank statements to prove your complaints are from an actual donor, but I am not entitled to that. Am I? No, that's called, you're doing another straw man. You're doing another straw man right here. This is not about the people asking the questions, because anyone can ask the questions, but it's especially important when donors ask about their donations, because they have legal recourse in this. Probably why I'm not wine streaming and throwing a nonstop hissy fit about it. But you feel free to cry it out as long and hard as you need to about not getting more than you're entitled to. I think the donors are entitled to a thorough and accurate accounting of every penny of that fundraiser, actually. If you genuinely wanted to know, you would have at least spent 1 minute looking at the information released by the court and the attorneys instead of triggering people and demanding other people audit. That's what's right the fuck at your own goddamn fingertips. Well, damn, that's rude. But guess what? I don't know why you're talking to Adrian that way, but I have done at least 10 hours of studying those 100 pages of documents. And so I'm very well aware. And I've also spoken to several donors, and I've also spoken to several people who've spoken to quote unquote insiders. And I don't think I should have to spell their names out for you, but we know that there are, let's be honest here. Some of the lawyers behind the scenes here are telling different stories to different people about this money. I'm going to just break it down and be fucking actually honest with my people right now. Listen, some of these lawyers behind the scenes are telling different stories to different people about where the money went, where the money was spent, and where the money is right now. And that's concerning. Like I said, I look at human behavior for the red flags, and there's red flags all around this. The funds were raised in 2023, not 2024. False. False. Listen, I'll show you right now. When's the end date? When's the end date of this? Someone tell me the end date. It says there, May 10th, 2024, right? May 10th, 2024. So this is not correct here, actually. The funds were raised in 2023, not 2024, when the trial was 1 month away, because they weren't sure if Richard Allen would survive at that point because of a condition at the point. Jesus fucking Christ. Also, at that point, Gold was refusing to allow the most obs of basic experts like effing pathologies, DNA expert, while also refusing to authorize funding for any experts in time for the 1 month away trial. And that left the defense in a position of having to try to defend Richard Allen without experts or come up with tens of thousands of dollars to front the cost for consultations and or retainers, and then whatever fees would be incurred without any assurances that Gold would even authorize reimbursements, while the state had a blank check for all of it. And judge who believed the defense simply being able to cross-examine the state's experts was sufficient due process, which it is not, which was the whole fucking point of the fundraiser. After Gold cornered the defense into asking for continuance by refusing to give them the time they needed to cross-examine the state's fully funded case and put on whatever the defense they could scrap together. More requests for the only option left. Experts were made. Some were authorized for payment. Others were not. How the fuck you think you or anyone was cheated out of anything in this situation is fucking incredible. This is a prime example of what I was talking about, y'all, which is the absolute furious rage that's festering within that should be directed to the state of Indiana, Nicholas McClelland, and Judge Gull, okay? That's where that rage should be properly directed. No one's disagreeing with any of these points regarding the rage that should be directed to the state actors, okay? Now, the thing you have to understand, All Eyes, is that asking the questions about the specifics, the technicalities, and the auditing of the money that was taken in is extremely appropriate, pertinent, and relevant at this point in time, because trial is over. Judge Gull has already paid out all the reimbursements, and all of that information has been unsealed and been made publicly available. So it's not any fuzzy territory anymore. Everything should be crystal clear. The fact that you have several donors who donated in the amounts that I would consider mega donors, which means above $2,000, you have several donors in that range contacting me asking questions. I think you have a problem. And I think that David Hennessy and whoever is in control of these funds right now has to provide clear answers. And you're going to find out why. Then she makes it personal again, addressing Adrian. If you hadn't spent the last umpteen weeks repeating lies to justify your personal feelings, what lies has Adrian told? This might not be so difficult for you, but you're experiencing a personal problem, and you're mistaking facts that contradict your personal feelings for an actual problem in the real world that doesn't actually exist outside of your personal feelings and beliefs. Well, how does that tie into the other 4 donors who have messaged me asking me where the money is? Go smear pest and wind people up somewhere. That dumb shit is appreciated, because I'm not impressed with your dedication to look for a perceived problem with every single answer and solution that doesn't justify all the big feelings you're experiencing on the inside. This is a case of pure projection. Okay? This is pure projection. Remember, getting back to my point here when I read Adrian's post, Adrian did not address her question to All Eyes on Delphi. Okay? The fact is that All Eyes on Delphi took it upon herself to read Adrian's post and then go on a tirade, okay, about Adrian's post with all of these words and all of this anger and frustration, okay? She also took it upon herself to make a grossly inaccurate spreadsheet, which we're going to get into shortly. Okay. So I say none of this is accurate. And none of this is accurate. And I'm going to give you two examples right now. Okay? I'm going to give you two examples. So I say two things. So firstly, I say, I'd like to draw your attention to the following quotation from the retainer agreement presented to Kathy Allen that was proposed by Michael Osbrook and Carol Weinecke. Okay? Paragraph number 7 of that retainer agreement under authorizations states, quote, let me make it clearer for you. That's not good. Here's a quotation. Authorizations to advance the post-conviction investigation. The client authorizes post-conviction counsel to, look at this, to obtain from David Hennessy any funds publicly raised during pretrial phase of the client's criminal case. I can't speak tonight. Okay. Once again, let me start over. It says, paragraph number 7 under authorizations, to obtain from David Hennessy any funds publicly raised during the pretrial phase of the client's criminal case and currently in Mr. Hennessy's possession or control. Okay, remember, this is Michael Osbrook and Carol Weinecke, including in their retainer agreement for permission to obtain from David Hennessy any funds publicly raised during this fundraiser, during the pretrial phase of the client's criminal case, and currently in Mr. Hennessy's possession or control. So I respond and I say, if there were no funds, okay, if there were no funds remaining, $0 remaining from the David Hennessy Rick Allen Defense Expert fundraiser, why then was Osbrook and Weinecke asking for the remaining funds? Okay, it's just a very basic, very basic logical thought experiment here. Okay, very basic. In the contract, quote unquote, the retainer agreement proposed by Michael Osbrook and Carol Weinecke for Kathy Allen, under paragraph 7, one of the permissions requested was to obtain from David Hennessy any funds publicly raised during the pretrial phase fundraiser. Okay, currently in Mr. Hennessy's possession or control. All right. And I respond that if there are no funds, $0 remaining, why then is Osbrook and Weinecke asking for the remaining funds? Okay. Now, even more importantly, here, I say, secondly, there's the obvious fact that the court, Judge Gull, paid for Stacey Eldridge in entirety, as seen in the documents below. In other words, the court paid for Stacey Eldridge in entirety. Okay, and I'm going to show you that momentarily. And I actually realized I forgot to make my graphic I wanted to make for you, but I'll explain it to you with my hands. And I described that this is a gross miscalculation by All Eyes on Delphi. Okay, to the point that one must question whether it was intentional or if she's trying to hide the missing funds. Here are the pertinent quotations from the court, and I'm quoting from the 100-page unsealed defense expenditure document stack. Court authorizes reimbursement to Andy Baldwin in the amount of $12,400 for Eldridge, a cell phone expert. Okay, and that was from September 30th, 2024. I'll show it to you momentarily. Another quote from another one. Per the September 30th, 2024 order, court authorizes payment to Andrew Baldwin in the amount of $12,400 as reimbursement for payments made to Stacey Eldridge. Check number 1760 for $6,400 and check number 11123 for $6,000. Again, if you add $6,400 and $6,000, you end up with $12,400, a perfect reimbursement for cell phone expert Stacey Eldridge. And this is dated March 4th, 2025. Okay. All right. Continuing. I say, I know that your MO is to pontificate, to position yourself as some kind of authority, and to post all kinds of irrelevant information in an attempt to overwhelm the reader with hocus pocus or razzle dazzle. That means distractions when confronted with very simple questions. Okay? Very simple questions should demand very simple answers. Let's be honest here. You're terrible at numbers. The spreadsheet you posted is full of errors. Why rush to answer these questions which you know nothing about? No one expects a YouTuber to be auditing or answering any detailed accounting questions about a fundraiser that concerned and verified donors are asking about. You are trying to shut down valid questions. If there's no problem with the monies, then there should be no problem with the proper people answering these questions. Period. Okay? Now, let me continue, because I want to show you guys something. This right here was sent to me from a donor. This particular donor in April, and actually on prior to April 1st, as you can see, this particular donor in March had questions about her donation. Oh, damn it. I shouldn't have said a name. I shouldn't have said a sex, Sorry, I didn't mean to reveal anything whatsoever because these people are stalkers. Okay, forget it. This particular donor sent an email to Pay It To in late March to ask about their donation. And this is a reply that this particular donor received on April 1st, as you can see, from Thomas Zen. It says, hello, redacted. Pay It To is just the platform for creating the fundraiser page. And this is the important part. The account where the funds went was in Stripe, and all due diligence was done by Stripe to ensure the organizer and account owner was indeed who it said. Since this is the second inquiry like this in 2 days, which is also interesting. So that means in late March, there was another inquiry prior to this particular donor. So this is the second donor in 2 days as of April 1st who had asked about this Stripe account. And so he says, where's this doubt coming from? Okay, so next we're going to go to the initial posting so that you can see how this was advertised to the people. All right, check this out. Experts for Richard Allen. Okay. Experts for Richard Allen. $40,220 of 45,000 raised. Deadline was May 10th, 2024. Organized by David R. Hennessy Law Office. Okay. Remember this one? Stripe in all due diligence ensured the organizer account owner was who it said. This says it's David R. Hennessy Law Office. Okay? And it says this is the official expert expense fund for Richard Allen. Again, the official expert expense fund for Richard Allen. Richard Allen was once employed as a licensed pharmacy technician at the CVS in Delphi. On October 31st, 2022, Mr. Allen was arrested for a crime that he maintains he did not commit. Mr. Allen has been accused of committing Abby and Libby's murders. But is investing everything he has to fight for his freedom. He is presumed innocent until proven guilty through a court of law and has an absolute right to a fair trial, which is currently being violated. Funds are being raised to pay expenses related to expert fees and costs. Okay? Note, and this is important, okay? Note, on 30 March 2024, the fund's target goal was increased by $20,000. We have identified the experts needed, and the cost of fees, travel, and lodging are greater than originally anticipated. And this is again what I quoted from here, where it says, please be advised that no funds collected will be offset against fees related to David Hennessy's law firm, Richard Allen's defense team, or to Richard Allen. Donations are not tax deductible. Donation statistics: 709 people donated, a total of $40,220.76. Okay, powered by Pay It 2, okay, which is an offshoot of Square LLC. Square, it's Square. Okay, Square. Remember? Stripe and Square, it's all the same thing. Now, I'm going to take this down for a minute, because here's an important part that I need to show you now. And listen, maybe at some point in the future, I can do an exhaustive accounting. I'm not going to do an exhaustive accounting tonight, but what I'm going to do tonight is give you one single example, okay, of a gross error in how this is put across. So let me first read through this so you will very clear that you all need to. I mean, basically, we're going to all have to become accountants if no one's going to step forward and put these concerns to rest. Okay, so for instance, let's take a look at this. Again, this is from September 30th, 2024. I've highlighted that. September 30th, 2024. And in the highlighted portion, or the red box, it says, court authorizes reimbursement to attorney Andrew Baldwin in the amount of $12,400 for Stacey Eldridge, a cell phone expert. Okay? So pay very close attention to those words. Court authorizes a reimbursement to Andy Baldwin. Okay? This is a follow-up which states, per the September 30th, 2024 order, court authorizes payment to Andrew Baldwin in the amount of $12,400 as reimbursement for payments made to Stacey Eldridge. And it says check number 1760 for $6,400 and check number 11123 for $6,000. Once again, you add these up, $6,400 plus $6,000 equals $12,400, right? So per the September 30th order, okay, per, that means in reference to, okay, you get it? In reference to this September 30th order, which is for 12,400. So this is asking for the money. This is granting the money in the form of two checks, one for 6,400 and one for 6,000. Okay. So here's what I'm trying to show you. Remember, this is two checks going out, referring back to this request for that one amount of 12,400. So look, this is what I'm trying to show to you, that this is grossly inaccurate. Okay, because if you take a look at this now, and if you look towards the bottom where it says Stacy Eldridge, notice if you go from Stacy Eldridge and you move right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns, you get to the total. The total says $24,800. Okay? But here's a problem. Here's a problem. This is a gross error in calculating. Okay? Because it's all conflated here. It's all confused. This is not a proper balance sheet. Okay? For instance, the services of 12,400 that you see labeled as services, okay, that should be a negative balance. And check number 1760 and check number 11123 should both be positive balances. Okay, and when you would cross that negative 12,400 balance with the positive 12,400 balance, you should end up with 12,400 balance in the total. Okay. So this is just a single example of what I mean by this. These spreadsheets contain gross errors. Okay. For instance, this amount should total $12,400. Okay. Which means if you look down here in the total, this total is absolutely incorrect. Okay, because none of these numbers make sense. And not only that, not only is it just this one, but I traversed this entire document, and there's another 3 pages, because there's a 4-page document that contain all of this information somewhat, but all the pages contain gross errors. For instance, there's some amounts that are in these 100 pages of unsealed documents that are not included in the spreadsheet that All Eyes has created. And then there's some numbers in the spreadsheet that All Eyes has created that are not anywhere in those 100 pages. So having seen at a minimum 3 of those errors in my brief review of the 4 pages of the spreadsheet, I came to the conclusion that the entire spreadsheet is just chock full of gross inaccuracies. So when you're looking at some sort of tally here, as is stated here, you know, total fronted 49,131.01, fundraiser total for 40,220, remaining 8,911. Well, that's already off by 12,400. Okay, it's already off. This is already off by 12,400, and honestly, it's going to be more because there are other miscalculations here. Okay, now this is just critiquing the spreadsheet and the conclusions that All Eyes has come to on surface level, but it gets even deeper. Because here's what's not explained, and this is where I meant to make a graphic, and it totally escaped me because I was busy doing things before the show. I just totally forgot to make the graphic that I wanted to make for you all. But basically, you all have to understand how it's supposed to work like this, okay? This is the concept that I understand that we are dealing with here. And everyone needs to have a very firm grip on this. So if you're not paying attention prior, you probably pay attention now, so understand what we're saying. All right, so let's pretend here that you have a jar here, okay? And this jar is the fundraiser money. This is $40,220 and some change. $40,000 and $200, okay, right here. Okay, this is your bucket of fundraiser dollars right here. This money here was raised to provide for defense experts that Judge Gold did not approve or pay for. Okay, that the court did not fund. So this was supposed to be for experts who the court did not pay for. Okay, now let's pretend you got over here. You got something. Right here, you got Andy Baldwin's reimbursements from Judge Gold. In other words, this right here is one of them. This is just one, okay? There's going to be many of these. This is a reimbursement to Andy Baldwin. So these are two checks made out to Andy Baldwin for $12,400 totaling. Like I said, here you have a bucket with the fundraiser money, okay? Here you have Andy Baldwin's empty bucket, okay? So the way this is alleged to have worked is that there was this pressing need to pay experts, and there's this bucket of expert money here. So what we are understanding happened is that in this bucket, Andy Baldwin grabs $12,400 just for Stacey Eldridge. Okay, so there's $40,220. Of that $40,220, Andy Baldwin, with David Hennessy's permission, grabs into this money and pays Stacey Eldridge out. So Stacey Eldridge is not owed a dime anymore. She's fully paid. So she does her work, blah, 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 blah. In the meantime, Baldwin has asked for the money for Stacey Eldridge. Judge Gold approves the money, and then, as you see, pays out the money. So when Judge Gold pays out the money, it goes here in Andy Baldwin's bucket. So here comes, in Andy Baldwin's bucket, $12,400. Boom, from Judge Gold. Now, question here. If that happened with every expert until that level was zero in the 40,000 bucket, and then if Judge Gold paid out dollars back in Andy Baldwin's bucket, which we know happened, there were all kind of reimbursements to Andy Baldwin. Should not have Andy Baldwin's bucket been brought over to back to the fundraiser dollars and dumped back in there? See, I would have to assume that the proper way to handle it would be that, yes, because that fundraiser was for experts Judge Gold did not pay for. Okay, so if you took $12,400 out of that bucket and gave it to Stacey Eldridge, and then Judge Gold gives you $12,400, then you're supposed to put that money back in that fundraiser bucket. Because that $12,400 is not a bonus to Andy Baldwin for the trouble of going reach in that fundraiser and pay Stacey Eldridge. You see what I mean? No, there are no accusations here. We're not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just saying that you have to think logically how this balance sheet works or should work. Okay, so if we're looking at a balance sheet like this, okay, the way it's supposed to work is that the numbers have to add up. The numbers have to balance. So the problem here is that if you use $12,400 to pay Eldridge, and then Judge Gold also paid Eldridge, well, now you're talking about two what is it, $24,800 allocated to Eldridge? That doesn't make sense because she's only properly allocated the $12,400. And like I said, I'm only using the Stacy Eldridge payment and reimbursement as an example. See, September 30th, authorized March 4th, 2025, paid out. Okay? So you got to understand where our minds are here. Is that it's not about wrongdoing or casting blame. It's about honest questions about this fundraiser. Because $12,400 should not be missing from the $40,000 because Judge Gull paid. In other words, you cannot say that $12,400 is missing from the fundraiser for Stacy Eldridge because Judge Gull right here paid out $12,400 for Stacy Eldridge. That means it don't make sense. And you especially cannot do this type of terrible accounting and claim that $24,800 came out of the fundraiser for Stacy Eldridge, because that's a gross misrepresentation. $24,800 did not come out of that should be zero. That should be zero. Like, you understand? I hope everyone understands what I'm saying. That should be zero. Stacy Eldridge, zero. Because as I mentioned, the $12,400 for Stacy Eldridge, yes, was paid out of the fundraiser, but was paid or reimbursed by Judge Gull. So it should be zero from that fundraiser. Now imagine if that has happened several times over. They're huge accounting questions. So as far as where we are right now, all I know is I got donors asking me questions and receiving responses like we saw today. It ain't going to fly. It's not going to fly. Okay. Now, optimistically, we'd say this. The point of that fundraising money, yes, was for experts the court did not pay for. So if there are experts the court did not pay for, and we know there's probably a little, then yeah, there should be a little missing from that fundraiser. So there should not be $40,220.76 left, because there were some that Judge Gull did not approve. So some monies should be missing from that $40,220.76 to pay for the ones Judge Gull did not pay. But it's not going to be anywhere near half of the money or 2/3 of the money or 3/4 of the money. It's probably going to be a quarter or a third of that. So with that being said, as I mentioned, if I have to do the accounting on a live stream for everyone, then yeah, we can do that. But hopefully I won't have to go there, because I shouldn't have to. Like I said, the donors don't expect YouTubers to do the accounting. Okay, they expect David Hennessy's office, who is ultimately the party responsible for this fundraiser, to do an internal accounting or some sort of external accounting. And trust me, the way that people have been every 2 weeks coming to me with questions about these fundraiser funds, and I have no answers, I'm sure that these same people, as you can see, like as I shared with you, we know at a minimum now 2 have already gone to Pay It To, or Stripe or Square or Cash App, whatever you want to call it, this company. 2 people have already gone as of April 1st and asked about the monies. So I'm sure, and as I said, I had a handful who've come to me. I'm sure more people will be asking questions. So, obviously, as you see, organized by David R. Hennessy Law Office, we don't expect we don't require, and we don't want YouTubers to be answering these questions, because if you're going to come with this kind of combative attitude, attacking Adrian in this way with gross inaccuracies, uh, this is not your job. No one asked you, All Eyes, to look into this, to do this, and to try to fabricate some response and some sort of spreadsheets. You see, I attached that stuff here. You see, anyway, you can see. Leo Weston says, I tried to ask All Eyes where the proof is that the leftover money went to Rick. All I got was a total dodge of my question and told, well, because Hennessy told us where it went. No, not good enough, not by a long shot. They expect me to believe his word. In this case, I believe no one and nothing without proof anymore. Thank you so much. God bless you. Exactly. I believe no one and nothing without proof anymore. I truly hope it went where he said, but I'm not taking anything at face value. Whichever side is saying something better have proof, or it's speculation and lies. This has gone on far too long. Yeah. That's what I'm saying, Leah Weston. It's we're looking at, like I said, with this whole thing with All Eyes response here, the rage, okay, the fury, okay, it's understandable, as I mentioned. That's why I spent the whole first hour talking about it. The feelings are justified, but directing them at people asking genuine, pertinent, simple questions is the wrong action to take. It's the wrong step. It's the wrong person to direct this shit to. Okay? All those frustrations, all those feelings, all that rage, all that anger should be directed to the court, to the law enforcement of Indiana, and to the prosecutor and those who did this to Richard Allen, and also, especially, to the killers who did this to Abby and Libby. Okay? And we're not asking you to harass anyone, period. Don't even harass David Hennessy. This is not an admonition of David Hennessy. This is not accusing David Hennessy of misappropriation of funds. Okay? What we are doing is saying donors are asking questions and answers need to be forthcoming. And having YouTubers do it with gross inaccuracies and willy-nilly and just saying it was spent on experts. We don't know where it is. It's with Baldwin. No, it's with Hennessy. It's in Stripe. It's not in Stripe. It's in an account. We don't know. Listen, here's how I feel. Every penny that's remaining that after an accurate accounting that should still be available, because guess what? That could be used by post-conviction investigators before the end of the appeal as money spent for a good cause. So that money that exists, that technically should be a pretty significant amount or substantial amount that should be remaining, it should be used for the right purposes when Mrs. Allen decides on post-conviction investigation. Okay, so when a team is brought in to do post-conviction investigation, that team should have access to those funds to do whatever post-conviction experts they need to tap to do further post-conviction investigation. And keep in mind, after the appeal, after the direct appeal is extinguished, it's very likely that the state of Indiana will appoint post-conviction counsel so that monies will not be needed from this fundraiser. So it's truly between now, or between the time that Kathy Allen appoints or hires or signs on with post-conviction investigators is between now and the time the direct appeal is uh, over and post-conviction counsel is appointed free of charge. It's between now and then that those monies are needed. So I hope there is whatever 40,000 or 32,000, 35,000. I hope there's a significant amount left in there so that it can be utilized by investigators. Okay, just a moment, please. All right, sorry, I'm back. You guys want to know what happened? It's really disgusting. So my dog's laying here with me, and I thought he farted a really terrible fart. But I went and I was like, man, it smells like a skunk. So I opened the front door, and sure enough, it's a skunk. So there are skunks in and around the neighborhood. And there was a skunk that sprayed. So, oh my God, you can't believe the AC is blowing it in. Woo! My eyes are watering. Yeah, we got raccoons and skunks and deer and rabbits all in the neighborhood. So who knows? Some skunk might have had an encounter with a deer, a raccoon, or a fucking rabbit. Who knows? Oh, it's horrible. My eyes are burning. All right, y'all. So my life. A skunk stopped by. Yeah. Ugh. I'm not turning the AC off though. It's catch 22. I'm gonna be breathing some skunky air now. All right, now. Um, so moving on. Yeah, exactly right. Something kind of smells, kind of poetic. All right, so whew. Now moving on. Okay, moving on, moving on, moving on. We're done with the that. So listen. Next subject. All right.